Unlike Mr. Del Duca, I don't take lightly people's charter rights, and so that's why what we're saying is rapid tests or your vaccination status and being vaccinated.
Those comments caught fire on social media overnight. Even NDP MPs were critical of Horwath's comments, with Charlie Angus saying the Liberals will, quote, drive a truck over our party for such idiocy. Today, Horwath walked back her comments.
On Wednesday, I made a mistake suggesting a mandatory vaccine policy during a global pandemic should take a back seat to charter rights. I regret the comment. I was wrong. I fully support mandatory vaccination in healthcare and education based on science and public health priorities.
For more on this story, we turn now to two Queen's Park journalists. Jessica Smith-Cross is the editor of QP Briefing, and Robert Benzie is the Queen's Park bureau chief for the Toronto Star. Both are in Toronto. Hello to you both.
Hey, Paul.
Busy 24 hours for Andrea Horwath. She's now saying she supports mandatory vaccinations for healthcare and education workers. What do you think, Robert? Did she need to backtrack? Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, she needed to backtrack, Paul. That interview that she did yesterday with you, 24 hours later, she was saying the opposite. So what did Michael Kinsley used to say? A gaffe is when a politician accidentally tells the truth. So I think when she was speaking to you yesterday, I think she was earnest and believes that, you know, it is going to be difficult to make vaccines mandatory in Ontario because of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But it caused her a lot of internal problems in her party. The Liberals pounced. Stephen Del Duca, who you interviewed just before that, and of course she was reacting to that interview when she made that slight to him about him. They were fundraising off of it today. The Liberals were. So they were just crowing. This was manna from heaven for them. And, you know, she had internal problems that the Liberals are painting her as siding with Premier Doug Ford's Conservatives. It was just a messy situation. So that's why she did that unusual video. And she's been leader for 9 years now of the NDP here in Ontario. I don't think I've ever seen her apologize or be so contrite about anything.
Jessica, you've been nodding along. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Benzie, absolutely. But I want to add that among the public, I think this was one of those situations where she walked right into what is already a concern and criticism about the NDP, that it's sort of way too beholden to unions. That seemed to be a lot of people's initial reaction. And whether that was her motivation or not, and maybe we haven't quite nailed that down, it certainly seemed like she was putting a relationship with unions over the safety of kids and families, and that looked bad. And so she absolutely had to walk it back.
Jessica, she'd been calling for rapid tests earlier, though. What do you think took so long for this to really explode in this way?
It was the interview you guys did with her. People got to see her say that, and maybe they weren't so in touch and aware before, and it touched a chord with people. It touched a chord with parents, for sure, who will have kids in schools next year.
I wonder if part of this is the power of social media, too, because it sort of caught fire there. Robert, what do you think?
Well, you know what, Paul? Sherry DeNovo, a respected former NDP MPP who was a thorn in Andrea Horwath's side in earlier days at Queen's Park. But Ms. DeNovo, Dr. DeNovo, she's a United Church minister, is very active on social media, and she was tweeting about this, and she actually said, "Yikes!" I mean, her tweet it exploded. People, New Democratic MPPs were sharing it, staffers were sharing it, and she said, "Look, NDP MPPs, save yourselves! Like, basically distance yourself from this really crazy stance, because as Jess says, this is not something that the public wants. We know that it is very popular in the public writ large for people to be vaccinated in schools and healthcare facilities." Is
backtracking enough, do you think? I mean, in this, you know, given the seriousness that, you know, everybody on the planet takes this particular issue, COVID broadly, you know, where does this go from here for her? Does the news cycle, you know, move past this and it's forgotten? Jessica, what do you think?
Well, we still have over 6 months to the election, but this kind of thing does live on in people's mind, particularly when it does play on an existing concern they have about the party. It sort of reinforces the view that the criticism they might already have about the NDP. So it might take a lot of work for her to convince people that she honestly is different, and she honestly does care more about the safety of students than she does about union allies.
Robert?
Yeah, I mean, Jess is right. The election is still a ways away. We're in August. It's the kind of story that we all pounce on in August when there's not a lot else to write about at Queen's Park. But it is a problem in the sense that it exposes fissures in that party, in the NDP, that could be problematic for Ms. Horwath going forward. The fact that so many in her caucus were sniping about this behind the scenes, that's not a good look for her. And the Liberals are in third place here in the standings in the legislature and in most polls, and in some I think they're in second. The Tories are in first place, and I think that for to give the Liberals a good day, like Stephen Del Duca probably had the best day he's had in a long time today and yesterday, thanks to that interview. So I think it's, you got to be careful. We're getting into the pre-campaign period here in Ontario.
You know, looking ahead to the next few months, then, you know, with the the province is saying no to mandatory vaccinations, but that they'll encourage people to get them. Given Horwath's new position, you've got the other two parties, on the other side together. Where does this go broadly in the province as voters start to think about the decision they'll have to make next year? Jessica, we'll start with you.
Well, one of the things that I think voters also are going to have to consider about this is their overall impression of the leader. So when Andrea Horwath made this statement, she didn't just make an error on this one policy issue. She also invoked the charter. And by doing so, she sort of misunderstood it, misinterpreted. There really isn't a lot of charter engagement on this issue. And she sort of further painted herself as a little bit not so in touch with it. And that plays into another weakness of Doug Ford, who's been accused over and over again of trying to trampling over the charter, invoking the notwithstanding clause. She's lost a lot of ground when it comes to that kind of fight as well. And she ceded that to the Liberals.
Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could all be moot by election time, June 2nd next year, because remember, Ontario is already, I think, at like 81, 82% vaccinated, first shots 12 and up. And 70% fully vaccinated. So they could get to 90% by the end of this year. And if that's the case, then who will remember who was, talking about vaccination rates or mandatory vaccinations in an election campaign that is so many months away? They may, this may be something that is forgotten, but Jess is right. It is debilitating behind the scenes. And I think that it's one of these things that can dog you. It was an own goal, and but I mean, it was quite a remarkable about face. I was stunned by what she told you yesterday, and I was stunned when I saw her statement today.
Is it, the last thing I want to ask is just to take a step back that I often wonder about with politics broadly, and that is, are you allowed to say you were wrong, right? Kind of you're damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of circumstance, isn't it? Is that just life in politics? You know what I mean? Because she gets criticism for saying, hey, I messed up. But had she not, she would have obviously continued to get a different kind of criticism. Robert, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think voters are sophisticated, and it's a gotcha kind of thing. And, we all, journalists pounce on these things. We love when there's a flip-flop, a U-turn, or whatever. But I think people are more sophisticated, and they understand that politicians screw up. Dalton McGuinty, the former Premier of Ontario, who had his share of snafus, he used to say it's never too late to do the right thing when he would flip-flop. And I think that, I think voters andrew that. I mean, they've forgiven Doug Ford on a few flip-flops over the last 3 years, so I'm sure they'll forgive Andrea Horwath on this one. And
last word, Jessica?
Yeah, that's right. I think you can take it back. People won't exactly forget, but it does a lot less damage than sticking to a wrong decision for the long term.
All right. Thanks to both of you for jumping in on this. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Jessica,
see you, Paul.
Thank you.
Jessica Smith-Cross, editor of QP Briefing, and Robert Benzie with the Toronto Star.